All right, everybody, it's the Jerry Metcalf podcast, and today, back on the show, we have the somewhat famous Chris Kwan, or really famous Chris Kwan, in Irvine, California. For those of you who don't know, that is the middle of Orange County. Chris, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me again.
I love it. Yeah, and for those of you who haven't seen his first episode, you have to go see it, chriskwan.jerrymetcalfpodcast.com, because he talks about how he does amazing content. I mean, amazing, creative, eye-catching, clever, beautifully branded, unique, fabulous. And today we're going to dive a little deep into the realm of the videos, but also your listings. Before we get into that, tell us a little bit, remind everybody about yourself, about your business, and how you got into the business.
So I've been in the business 7 years. I am a solo agent, started off on a team, but was only on a team for a short period of time. So I've been a single agent for pretty much about 6 years, 6.5 years now. And I am in the city of Irvine, which is, again, dead smack in the middle of Orange County. Price points here around $850 to like $900, so it's a decent amount. That'll buy you like a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, like condo. But I absolutely love doing video, and I should be looking at the camera here. I'm looking at you. But I love actually love doing video.
Wait, are you criticizing me now? No, I'm kidding.
I love doing video. I've incorporated it with my business. It's been tremendous for me in so many different ways. Built a lot of relationships, opened a lot of doors, helped me get into my farm, increased my business. I mean, there's so many things that it's been so fruitful for me with it. So, other than that, I got married, got 2 kids, 2 beautiful kids, and live a pretty simple life. So
awesome. A simple life and incredible video marketing. So everybody, do go back and listen to that, because he tells us a lot about what to do and how to do it. And we talked a little bit before the show about your listings. You're really picking up a lot of listings right now, and you're creating a video around listings. So tell us what the video is and what compelled you to do it.
So video in itself is just a passion for mine. So like I am always looking for new content to create, and I'm always like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. I'll jot it down, have this list of videos that I want to create. And so the one that I'm working on now is kind of, it's called The Art of the Listing Presentation, or the Listing Agent, sorry. And I think it's, for me, I've never been much of a listing agent till probably like a year and a half ago. And all of a sudden the listings just started coming in kind of around the same time I started doing video like full on. And all of a sudden transitioned to being like a 75% listing agent. And I started working with 25% buyers.
Wow.
And so before that, I wouldn't say I was a buyer's agent, but I worked predominantly. I was 75 buyers and then 25% listings. And so listings, I feel, just like being a buyer's agent, there's a certain art that you have to develop, and you have to understand. And there's a little bit of balance between juggling all the little different things, right? And I think the reason why I started this video is because I had a client recently who we closed on a house, and afterwards he was like, wow, that was really easy. And thinking in my head, I was like, holy crap, I didn't tell you about the 100 things that I had to go through, like the 100 different fires that I had to pull out.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like you go through this process and you're like, that was easy. And I'm like, well, the easier it is on your end, it's probably more difficult for me on the back end. And just because I don't share a lot of this stuff with you doesn't mean it's easy. So I found that kind of intriguing. And I had a conversation with a bunch of agents, and they're like, yeah, it's like that, some guy was like, Tiger Woods going out there and playing golf and, him being his best. You don't see all the hard work that he's put in. You just see kind of the aftermath of all the work that he's done.
And it looks really easy. Yeah.
It looks super easy. It looks like he's done nothing, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm sure these podcasts, when you guys put them out, people have no idea how much work that you have to put
Isaac's
into
really
getting this set up.
Yeah. No idea. All the things that can go wrong, all the things it takes to get it out. I mean, it's a process.
Most people probably think, oh, hey, she has probably a camera and then she'll press record and she
And
has
then it's
maybe some
like
technology.
done.
Yeah, it's done. It
Then
just
it's done.
made
The
for you. No,
podcast
it's
just goes
not.
out to the world. It's just there. It's so easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. And so I think documenting that and maybe kind of giving people a little bit of light to show them like, hey, this is kind of what we have to go through, right? The reason why we charge 5, 6% or 7% on the listing is not because we just put your home on the MLS. It's because that we put your home on the MLS and we do 1,000 other things. And then all the
Exactly.
other crap that could happen, we deal with it.
We deal with that for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So, in creating this, is the audience going to be agents, or is the audience your potential clients, or is the audience any potential seller or
Yeah,
any seller?
I think the nice thing about this is that it's not really focused on one person. It could be for agents, it could be homeowners, it could be for anybody in general. But I think anybody can take away from it, right? If a homeowner was looking at that video, maybe thinking it was directed to other agents, and then saying, "Oh wow, this is what they have to do. This is kind of what they had to go through," and then on the vice versa, like for agents looking at it, going, "Well, that could be great content." And so I get a lot of agents who will look at my stuff and go, "Oh, I like that idea. I'm going to take it," and I'm like, "Go ahead and run with it." Like we call in our industry, we call R&D, right? Rip off and duplicate. I'm totally fine with that. Right? Just go ahead and take it. But
Right.
just don't copy it. Go ahead and take the idea.
What did you call it?
and
Rip
run
it off and repeat, RR?
with it.
I love it.
Yeah. Right.
Rip it off and repeat. So, but how many people really do that and do it like you?
Honestly, there's a ton of people who do that, and I don't mind it.
I don't know if anybody does it like you. You do it pretty well. Everybody's got it. Which obviously, Isaac's going to link videos on the blog page for you, and
There's a lot of people out there that do some really, really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. So, I mean,
This guy
I think
takes no credit. I love it. Okay, so back to, because I'd love to talk about a few things from the video that you're making, what it's going to be, and what your experience is. You've been in the business 7 years, which is not, I mean, in the world of real estate, it's a long time, but for a career, you're still, it's relatively early. You're doing incredibly well. You've created quite the name for yourself. You came highly recommended to the show by several other agents who've been in the business a long time. And how did you go, it was when the videos came out, but if you could, in your experience of what you're doing, how would you pinpoint your evolution into where you are now and becoming so heavy on listings? Because most people those that list last is kind of the mindset that people have, and is their goal.
Well, I stopped listening to all the criticism because when I first started doing videos for myself, there was a lot of top producing agents saying, if you want to be a photographer, if you want to be a videographer, you should go and do that. You shouldn't sell real estate and be a videographer. And
Interesting. Even 7 years ago, people were saying that. Wow.
Well, people were saying that like constantly, social media. I mean, they were just saying that all over the place. And so I just didn't listen to those people. I was just kind of like, you know what, I'm going to create my own stuff. I had this inkling, like if I created stuff that I created, it would be personal for the person that's watching it. And, I always teeter back and forth because these people were like really good at their job. They were high producing agents, but at the same time, like I'm hard headed, right? I'm stubborn. So I didn't listen to them. So I started producing my own stuff. And after a while, it just started catching on. And I'm not the person that engineered all this. I'm just kind of like going along. But, people started seeing like what I was doing and they're like, oh, I like that. Even though on my end, it does take a long time for me to shoot, to cut, edit, and to obviously optimize all these videos for all these different platforms. After a while, it just started getting out there and people just started knowing who I was, whether it was other agents or whether it was other homeowners, consumers, whatever it might be. So, and now I think everybody's like, hey, everybody's like buying their own cameras, doing their own things, editing their own stuff. I know people that, you would never think of that are like editing their own stuff and shooting their own, and they're producing some good stuff. So,
Exactly.
We're like small businesses until we get to a point where we can, we can't handle it, then we hire somebody else.
Well, exactly. So tell us about, back to the listing part, the evolution of getting from buyers to listings. The videos helped because it got you attention. And it got people in front of you. But is there anything, like if you could articulate it to someone who's trying to adjust their business and shift their business, what could you narrow that shift and down to any aha you had or anything specific that you did with the videos, how you put them out, what made the biggest impact, what really, because anybody can make videos, but how do you implement that to get results from it?
So I don't think the formula to success is just videos. I think it's an added piece.
Oh, absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's my point. Exactly.
Yeah. So like for me, like I had a friend and we were talking several years ago, and our goal was we wanted to be everywhere, anywhere that we could be in the area that we were working in. And so that included, everything, all the traditional stuff like mailers, open house signs, print advertisements, if you're doing like special events. But then at that time, video was like, not a lot of people were doing it. And so that was just kind of an added layer for me on top of everything else that I was doing. And I would say like I am in an area where it's hard for me to door knock or to really get to meet a lot of people, just because people have like Ring doorbells on all of their houses. Like you go to their front door, nobody answers it unless you're like the FedEx person. And even for like Mormons, they don't answer Mormons. They don't answer like none of that, right? And so like the way for me to get into their house was through video and social media and email marketing. And like
it's a much faster way too. Yeah.
What's that?
It's a much faster way. You get a lot more houses at once with a video.
Yeah, for sure. And at that time, Facebook was different because you could actually, geo-target an area where it's a lot different.
It keeps changing, yeah.
Yeah, it keeps changing all the time. And so the video was, Facebook was pushing it, Instagram was pushing it. It was just a really good time to get into video at that point because you could market it really well. But if for anybody that's wanting to do it now, I would look at it like this. If you don't do it, like you're going to be left behind. So it's not even about like taking advantage of an opportunity. It's almost like you're going to be left behind if you don't do this. So it's either you're on board or you're going to be struggling to find other business because everybody else is taking advantage of everything.
Yeah, it's either you're going to show up for the party or you're not.
Yeah.
So back to your, which is kind of, I think, where we're both going, is you have really shifted your business. I keep saying the same thing again and again, but buyers to listings. And it's not just video. Video, it sounds like, video is that relationship developer. It was that initial engagement, that familiarity, that over and over again, that now you've become familiar. Now I know what you're about. Now I trust you. Now I know who you are. But when it comes into really, again, shifting your business, what else? Because it's not just making videos. It's going to make you successful. What is that for you?
For me, well, I mean, again, it's in that video that I'm making, the headliner or the thing that I'm promoting is balance, right? So it's having a balanced business, balanced skill set, balanced negotiation skills, balanced head. Like it's so hard when I was early on in the business to get frustrated all the time. Everybody, right? I was pissed off at the agent. I was pissed off at the owner. I was pissed off at my clients. I was pissed off at the escrow office. Like I was just mad. And I got to a point where as long as I can get balanced and not let some of that stuff like get to me, I'd be good, right? And I'm starting to see like the nuances of everything, the details of like going into a listing presentation. We talk about all the time about transitions, like transitioning from the front door into the house, right? That's a small little transition. Transitioning from the dining room table into like maybe the tour of the property, transitioning into one topic to another topic, from commissions to like how we're gonna market your home. Like all of those little nuances are so important for like a listing agent to have that I think most people like don't even think about, right? And then that's just like the listing presentation. What about actually doing like having a listing on the market, talking to agents, negotiating through conversations, like so all those little small things that I feel like either make or break a deal are things that nobody ever talks about, right? We talk about listing presentations, but we don't talk about some of those smaller things, that how we deal with like an awkward situation. You never want to have like somebody, like you're sitting there with a client and all of a sudden there'd be dead silence. You need to know how to transition from one topic to another, like with ease, right? And so that builds confidence. It's kind of like NLP, right? using
Exactly.
NLP.
And
Yeah.
NLP, neuro-linguistic psychology, or some people call it neuro-linguistic programming, which is the impact that the words you say have on people when you're talking to them, and how what you're saying affects what they're thinking. And there are people that are so good at it that they can get people to do kind of just about anything, which is a little bit scary, but a little bit
crazy.
cool.
It's a total art form. Like,
So tell
your
us a little
pauses.
about that and what you know. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like how you pause in a conversation, like how do you, your body language. There's so many different communications that you have while you're talking to somebody. It's not just the vocal, it's the body language, it's hand, it's like, it's visual, it's all this other stuff. And there's all these little nuances that I feel like if you can get really good at that, you could literally control an
It's a
environment.
Tony Robbins thing. Tony Robbins uses
Yeah.
NLP. Or
I've never gone to a Tony Robbins thing, but I'm sure it's something very
That's
similar.
it. That's what he does. That's what he does. That's it. But so NLP. I mean, I don't want to get too off track, but it is relevant in influencing and I think talking about the listing presentation is. I wish I remember the guy's name, but he's an NLP guy on YouTube because somebody was telling me about it and I kind of got into it for a minute, just watching videos about it. And there's video. See, like I didn't search on Google. I searched on YouTube for the videos. I mean, there you go, back to your video point. But he talked about even in conversations is how you mirror people, and people that are really good at NLP will capture an emotion and trigger it with an expression or a way of mirroring. And then they'll have a conversation and they'll re-trigger, they'll have an expression they give you that will re-trigger the emotion in that person to keep them. I mean, it's kind of like, that's a lot to think about, but I guess when you learn it and you know it, you're good at it. But again, to what you said, yeah, but go ahead.
No, it's just constantly kind of learning and ingraining it. And the more appointments that you go on, the more practice that you can get, the more practice that you can get with like other agents. If you're doing some role playing, you can start to master it. It becomes part of like a habit when you're going into presentations. But not just dealing with homeowners, it's dealing with, other agents too. I feel like a lot of the headache that I deal with is with other agents. And sometimes the things that you say, like you feel like on the back end, they're a lot more raw. Like if you and I were clients, right? If you were my client and I was an agent, I have some type of a barrier. Like I know that I can't speak to you a certain way. And I feel like when we talk to agents, it's like no holds barred. Like, like some of the conversations I have with agents are really fun. But but being good at some of that stuff is important.
And I think that's a good point you bring up, though, in the and I don't know if this is where you're going with it, but in the conversations you have with agents is like our clients we represent, and we represent them over and over, but we work with the same agents over and over even more for even longer. And the relationship we have with them, you leave a print on an agent every time you do a deal. Kind of like there's like a little memory print, or there should be, and it should be a positive one. So the next time you bring a buyer through their listing, or they bring a buyer through your listing, they really want to do that again, because that communicates, whether it's NLP or whatever, back to the other client on their relationship with you. Because there is such a lack of a buffer. I think it's a great message to send, even through your experiences, reminding us all of the importance of treating other agents with the same respect, if not, almost like taking into account even more that impact it has on our business to have those relationships. And what do you have? I mean, what's your thought on that?
Well, I mean, I try to think of it from a higher level too. Like I look at it from a brand perspective as well when I'm having conversations with certain agents. Because if I have a conversation with an agent and it goes in the wrong direction, their impression of agents at our company are like that too. So I try to think of it from like a very high level as well, but also just kind of, I used to have this thing before where I used to be very, very, very nice, and I want to work really well with the agents that are around the area that I live in. And I'm like, why don't I think like that with every agent?
Winning business, you've really established business with, or a brand with the videos, and even an engagement in relationships. From there, in listing appointments, whether it's the client, whether it's the agent, it's all about engaging. It's really a lot about reputation and relationships. And behind all of that is your character and doing things well and doing things with excellence. On that note, I think, we're getting a picture of you, your business, your branding, your listing appointment, and your listings. We've talked a lot about the listings and how you communicate, how you negotiate. If you could sum up that whole process for us, how would you say we've got the engagement, but from the engagement to the winning the business, to the delivering the business and working with the client, to the close and moving forward, what is the sum of how all of that looks for you in your advice? Kind of what is the paradigm of how you do things?
Yeah, so I think there's a balance for me. There's a really, really delicate balance that you have to have, because you want to represent a client and you almost want to be like that person in their corner, like, hey, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure everything is good. But you have to be careful, because if you play on that side too much, when things go wrong, like it could shift really, really quick. So you have to kind of teeter and totter between being that person in their corner, but also being their advisor, and going through that process and just making sure that you take care of the process, regardless of whatever it is. And so if I were to represent my dad, which I did recently, I would go all out on everything. I would want to negotiate really hard for him. I want to make sure that he's taken care of. The marketing's on point. I'm showing up on time for my appointments. I'm talking to other clients, and I'm talking to buyers, and whatever it might be. Every single little part of that you have to be really good at. And I think one of my coaches, she told me this. She's all, when you're in listening a presentation, they're not really hiring you just for that job. They're hiring you for all the experiences and all the bullshit that you had. All the bull that you had to deal with.
You can say bullshit. It's a podcast. Anyway.
Okay, cool. Bullshit.
Unless it was like a New Year resolution. I don't want to hurt that.
But I mean, you're hiring that person for all the BS that they had to deal with up until that point, all the experience and all that point. So I think it's important. Just go back to that, like this whole thing of balance, right? You have to be so good at every little thing, right? You have to be that person that wears the mayor hat, the police hat, the fireman hat, the lawyer hat. You have to do everything, and you have to be really good at it to be a really good listing agent, right? And I feel like the better you are at that, the more opportunities will come, because people will start to recognize, wow, that person's really good. And so I think most people spearhead it in a different way. They go, okay, how can I get more marketing out there? How can I get my name out there? How can I get more opportunities? And I think the opportunities really come where you actually, where you're more focused on the transactions that you have with you, making sure those are really, really solid, making sure those experiences are really good, and that brings you longevity. That's how I'm looking at it now.
I love that. Beautifully answered. That's one of the best ways I've heard it said. Thank you very much for sharing it, and sharing it that way, because I think everybody's looking for the trick, and there's no trick. It's be good at what you do. And you're good at what you do without keeping it a secret, but without the focus on just getting the deal. It's running your business. It's the balance of everything with full integrity and excellence.
Well, you keep in mind, like if you do that, if you are really, really good at that, I think the video is just like the extra sauce that'll get you over the hump. But I don't, people are thinking like, oh, I'm going to do the videos first in order to get all that other stuff, which I think is kind of the misconception.
Can also get you into trouble. Because if you create these great videos to get you all this business that you're not ready for, it could do more harm than good in the long run.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the final three that you've done before, but we have to make sure or see how they've changed, because everybody's always evolving. Number one, what do you find is your most powerful tool in working with listings?
What is my most powerful tool?
Yeah, what do you find, whether it's technology, something that you do? I always say CRM, that's an easy example. But what would you say it is? Other than a cell phone? What is it?
Knowing your system. Whatever your system is. Like, as soon as you get a signed listing contract, where does that go? Boom. Does it go to this person? When you get your photographs, who does it go to there? Like, as long as you have that system down and you know exactly how that works, it's just clockwork every single time. It's just repetition over and over and over again. So that when you get to a particular point in the transaction, you know exactly what's going to happen next and what's going to happen here. And so that you're prepared. So I think system is really important.
So the answer to your question is like, that's 1,000 more questions that came from everybody listening, I'm sure. Tell us, and you've got to go, and we've got to close it out. I know you've got things to get to, and we've got an interview, but let's talk about that another time, or get some more information for you. because systems are key. Everybody's looking for the system that's going to work for them. I'd love to hear more about it. If you could put in brief any of your best advice on creating a good system, and then we'll go to the next question.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was a solo agent and no assistant, I had the system in my head. So I knew exactly what I needed to do. When I got an assistant, all of a sudden I had to write everything out. And I had to say, okay, this is what we do in this situation. And all of a sudden it made it super clear, right? Because as I started getting busier and I was a solo agent without an assistant, I would miss a couple of steps. Always retract and then, get it done, but still retract a little bit. And it was a lot more efficient once I had it actually written out. And so having my coach calls it all the time, like a handbook, right? A handbook of systems that you need to have. So like, hey, when I take a listing when I sign a listing contract, this is exactly what happens with that paperwork and all that process, scheduling the stager, the cleaner, whatever it might be. Even before that, like going to a listing presentation. Okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to prepare? What comps do I need to look at? What do I need to say? Am I doing my background check on this person? Like, am I finding out who they are before I actually go into that listing? Like, there's so much there, right?
Exactly.
And I feel like with every step and stage throughout the process, there has to be a checklist that you go through, or else you're just going to be like, crap, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here.
Exactly. Or you just get really sharp at asking questions and then getting them to talk a lot.
Like you can have a checklist, right?
That's what this podcast is for, so I can ask questions. Oh, we have checklists. We have I reviewed our checklist with our closing manager yesterday with 3 pages of checklists, and the font's smaller. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that's how we get it all done and make sure it's all done every time. And that's just the closings. Next question. What is one book that you would say you have to read this book because it will impact your life and your business?
I'm not much of a reader, to be honest with you. I'm a visual learner. So whatever it might be, I think it's, for me, if you're a visual learner, you're not much of a book reader. I consume all my information like on YouTube or through tutorials like online and stuff. So whatever it might be, if you find like a niche or something that you're interested in, or it's like for video, whatever, I think it's important to do that. Also, since I'm a visual learner, I do it through relationships too. So I'll learn from other people. I'm very visual on looking at other people and seeing how they do things. How they say things and how they actually do it are always going to be different, but I want to see how close they are together. And
so what's the one thing visually that you would share with other visual learners for them to watch, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it's a speaker, whether it's a movie, whether it's a documentary? What is that one thing that's really impacted you?
I would actually step away from maybe, let me retract on that. I am the type of guy that will go, I used to be the type of guy that would go into a mall and I would sit there at a bench and I'd watch everybody go by and I'd look at their shoes. I'd see what they're wearing and I'd look up and I go, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? Or, oh, that doesn't make sense. Or I used to be that person that for some reason, every time I see a person with a dog, I feel like that dog is a version of that person, in some way, shape, or form. It's the correlation between what that dog is in terms of the size and their features and all that are very similar to the owner. I don't know why I do that. But learn outside in the real world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I look at billboards, I look at marketing, I look at things in real life. I know it's easy for us to consume information on our phone and stuff like that, but learning in real life is I don't think a lot of people do that. I don't think people are really conscious about what's happening around them on a normal basis. And people are really kind of stuck on their laptop and their phones. So even though I do get a lot of stuff from my YouTube, I'm also very, very conscious.
So your advice is take your experiences in the real world and apply them to your future and watch your videos.
Sure.
If there's one thing you want to make sure we take away from this interview and nothing else, what would it be?
So I am a huge proponent of video, but I wouldn't lead with video. I wouldn't lead with video at all. I think it's more important to really have a solid foundation. If you look at our business, and I think every business is somewhat a form of an art. And if you can look at it as an art piece, you can understand, I need to really be good at what I'm doing. I have to be good at my craft. I think that brings success. And I think all these other little things like video and social media, those are just Those are just like things that will help you, but it's not going to help you like long term. If you want to be really good at this business, you have to be really good at what you do. You have to take care of people. You have to understand contracts. You have to negotiate. You have to know how to talk. You have to know how to be calm in certain situations when you don't want to be. So I think that's important.
Hone your craft.
On your craft, yes.
But I like the way you said it. Beautifully said. Thank you. Great interview. Thank you, Chris.